This is LMU I'm Scott Earl, and back again with head men's basketball coach Josh Schertz. Well, Coach, gonna have a little fun talking about this one, I guess. We look back to just 3 weeks ago, had your own one and only loss of the season, then marked on the calendar immediately, pretty much by anyone involved, was the Carson Newman game. And last night, the best I could say is it just seemed like we played angry and focused, entirely focused. 91-61 win in Holt Fieldhouse. In Act Revenge, how do you think you guys played?
I was really proud of our guys. Obviously people look at the result, and certainly that's a part of it. But thought we played with an unbelievable amount of focus, an unbelievable amount of purpose. Thought guys went out a really high level of competitiveness. Execution was terrific on both sides of the ball. I thought that was probably our most complete 40-minute game. Carson Newman's got an excellent team. They're extremely well coached. Chuck Benson has got some really good young players, and they got some good veterans, and it's become a better, to have a rivalry. Obviously there's natural things that we have, a history and the proximity, but really both teams got to be good, right? I mean, because if both teams are bad, it doesn't really have any meaning. There's no stakes, and if one team's good, the other team's bad, it's not a rivalry because only one team's winning. So to have both teams have been good over the last few years and have all the history with it, it was, certainly we understand the rivalry, but I was really just more proud of how hard we played, how focused we were, how competitive we were, all the things I think we didn't do against Carson Newman, 3 weeks ago. And so to do those things last night, I was really proud of our guys, particularly coming off. That was our third game in 5 days, our second game in 40 hours, because we played late night on Monday night, got back here at 2 in the morning on Tuesday, and quick turnaround, and so all those things were couldn't have been prouder of how well our guys competed and executed, and like I said, how focused they were and how physical we were, because we really did a 180 from the game here 3 weeks ago.
It really was a 180, and you look at what happened, kind of just. And the way I've talked to most people about this team is that of all the teams I've watched of yours, this one seems to have more of a where it goes through these stretches where it just completely demoralizes teams. And it seemed like you really kind of broke Carson Newman's spirit really early in the game. They get the first 3-pointer of the game, and then it's 12-3, a 12-0 run. All of a sudden it's 12-3, and then next thing you look up, it's 31-11 on a Laquan Choice 3, 7 minutes and 41 seconds left in the first half. And essentially from that point, they could never really recover. So what do you think that you guys necessarily did to kind of swing everything, to change everything from the first time around?
Well, I think, our game plan was different. I probably, the first game, I didn't have as good a grasp maybe as on how good some of those guys were individually. Charles Clark was just kind of broken out at that point, and I knew Brooks and Williams were really good inside, but to me they're two all-league bigs. And Clark is an all-league caliber guard, so they have nice balance. We obviously, the first game, didn't take anything away from them. We allowed them to hurt us every possible way. They had 50 points in the paint. Clark got to the rim at will. Brooks and Williams had their way inside. There was really, they dominated the backboards. I thought we allowed them to catch the ball in way too tight, which obviously leads to easy baskets or fouls. So we came in with a mindset, with the good teams, what makes teams good is they can beat you a lot of ways, right? I mean, that's what makes an individual player hard to guard, is a guy that can drive it and shoot threes and offensive. And the more ways somebody can hurt you, the better player they are. The more ways a team can beat you, the better team they are. We went into the Carson Newman game. We knew they could beat us in the paint. We knew they could beat us on the backboards, and certainly they're a capable three-point shooting team. What we decided to do was really try to do a much better job of guarding Charles Clark, keeping him in front, and had a newfound kind of respect for how good he was. I thought Curtis Webb and Lorenzo did an excellent job on him. I think he had 5 points at the first 3-pointer of the game, and then we did a much better job on Brooks and Williams, initially fighting them for catches, not letting them catch the ball in tight. We made that more difficult when they did catch it. I thought as a team we did a great job of really deep digging the ball out of the post and not allowing them to just pound it and take 2 or 3 crabs and kind of put us where they wanted us in that. So the initial was guys like KP, Emmanuel Terry, Curtis McMillian, Dorian Pinson, fighting those guys, and then the secondary was what we did as a team to try to kind of build a wall and not allow those guys to get paint points. I think they had 14 points in the paint versus 50 the first time. And when they shot the ball pretty well from 3, better than their season average, and they were, I think, 19 for 21 for 22 from the foul line. They shot the ball well from there, but we were able to hold them to 61 because we took away the paint points.
Yeah, and then you look at what maybe might not have worked the first time, and what obviously kind of really fueled the victory was, and what's kind of carried us a lot this whole season, was Lorenzo Ross driving to the basket, kicking it out to Luquan Choice. Lorenzo gets a double with 12 points and 11 assists. Luquan matches a career high with 34 points, gets 7 3-pointers. Just talk about Luquan a little bit. Obviously, now he is the LMU single-season record holder for 3-pointers made. He's got 95, and he has a chance to become just the third player in SAC history with 100 3-pointers in a season. So, probably, I think that we've talked about Luquan a lot, but has he even exceeded your own expectations for him just in his second season actually playing?
Well, he's been exceptional all year. I mean, he's a great shooter, but so much more than that. The thing I love about Luquan, I've enjoyed coaching him as much as any player I've had in my 17 years coaching. He's got like all great player. He has a high level of humility. He's a guy that comes in. He wants to be coached. He has the type of character and the type of disposition that allows you to get on to him. And certainly I coach Luquan and Lorenzo harder than anybody because they have the most responsibility on our team in terms of whether we win or we lose. Those guys have a high level of responsibility. It makes sense they would get coached the hardest, but they have the type of character and are coachable enough to allow that to happen. I think that affects the other guys as well in a positive way. But Luquan's got a high level of humility. He's just a great competitor. He cares deeply about winning and losing. He cares deeply about helping his team. He feels a tremendous responsibility to the group to perform well. When he doesn't play well, it pains him because he feels like he let the group down. Those are characteristics that I didn't teach, and those are things that are kind of have been imbued in him since he was young. And he's got a great family, and you see when they bring that bus up from Lawrence, an unbelievable support group behind him. But he's a great player. He's a much better human being, and he'll. Barring something, catastrophic, I think he'll go down as one of the all-time greats here. He's just, he's got everything you need to be a top-level guy: the work ethic, the talent, the coachability, like I said, the high level of humility to continue to come in and work and get better. All the characters you need to be an excellent player. He's got them. You touched on Lorenz, and I don't want to gloss over that because 12 points, 11 assists, no turnovers, and did a great job defensively. Lorenz is a guy, Luquan is, in my opinion, as good as any wing. I wouldn't trade him for any wing in the country. And Lorenz, I'd say the same thing as a point guard. He makes us go. He's the engine on the offense side of the ball. His ability to live in the paint, his ability to find guys. He did an unbelievable job of reading defense yesterday. When they guarded us a certain way, he found the right guys. When they helped, he was able to make the right reads and find guys. You look at him statistically. His sophomore year, he started all year and 31 games and had 86 assists. He's starting as a senior and has started 27 games and has 155 assists. That's a credit to who he is. He's learned, and it's not natural for him, he's learned to read defense. He's learned to drive it and see what's available, whether it's himself or whether it's a teammate. He used to just go in and kind of make up his mind before he went. He was going to shoot the ball, and whatever the situation was, he shot it. You watch him now, and he's really a point guard in the truest sense of the word. He's found that balance. What he talked about in the preseason, we showed him, we said, John Stockton and Russell Westbrook. And we said, you got to be in the middle somewhere. You don't need to be, shooting 30 shots a game for us, unless you're getting 30 layups. And you need to find that. You don't need to be John Stockton where you're, getting 20 assists a night, but you got to find that balance. You look at Lorenzo, I think, and it's the hardest thing to do for a point guard that can get his shot whenever he wants to. He's found that balance of scoring himself, making his teammates better, and he's, due to his own study and his character, his coachability, he has learned how to read defense.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because one of the things that is kind of underrated is that Lorenzo plays almost 35 minutes to 38 minutes a game. I know he's only recorded as 31, but it seems like now that we're going down the stretch around the season, it's almost always 38, 37 minutes per game, and he's handling almost all of the ball handling duties, and he gets 0 turnovers. You guys have a season low for turnovers with 4 or 5 last night. Just a really clean performance overall. But something I wanted to talk about as well was you had mentioned the dominance inside. 38, you outscore them 38-14 in the paint, and then you out-rebound them 39-29. But in the most amazing thing about that was Keenan Peterson only gets 7 minutes. He gets two early fouls, and then he's only needed really for 2 minutes in the second half. But the depth of this forward group is kind of starting to come around now. I think we didn't talk about Monday's game against Brevard. Emmanuel Terry gets a double-double, 16, I think 11 in just one half of basketball, essentially. And then you're getting great play from Dorian Pinson. And, you know, just you never know who's who in this group. We knew it was going to be a committee, but now this committee is really starting to kind of grow in strength.
Yeah, well, it was a committee early in the year because you didn't know who was going to show up. And you're just trying to, you know, kind of throwing darts, and now it's more of a committee because of game, rhythm, those things. You know, you make a great point, though. KP, who I think has had a great year, has played 13 combined minutes in the last 2 games. Really with foul trouble, you know, he got 2 in the first half early against Brevard, 2 in the first half early against Carson Newman. He got a third with about 18 minutes to go against Carson Newman, an early third against Brevard. And when Emmanuel came in both scenarios, that group just had rhythm. And you know, we just kind of when a group is clicking and playing well, and you just try to play with it. Emmanuel against Brevard really was the linchpin in that run. You know, I really thought our first half against Brevard, our competitiveness and execution were incredibly poor. Brevard played great. They competed. They executed at a really high level. Our competitiveness execution was poor. I was as frustrated with that group at halftime as I've been all year. And then Emmanuel really came in the second half and backboards, scoring, rebounding, just his motor, his energy. I thought really, and Dorian was in the same boat. They kind of turned the tide of the game a little bit. And Jarrell off the bench. That bench group right there, really those 3 guys are logging the majority of bench minutes. Dorian, Emmanuel, and Jarrell. And they each have come in, and really even yesterday, Jarrell, and I think he had 16 against Brevard, so you can hit him as well. But Dorian, Emmanuel, and Jarrell have kind of been the guys that come off and have great energy, and they change the flow of the game. And we just stay with what was working in terms of at Brevard, and then against Carson Newman. And Emmanuel happened to be out there with a group that was really functioning at a high level. So, you know, was pleased with his performance. And KP's a guy that obviously we're going to need going that stretch. He's our anchor inside. He's just had some ticky-tack fouls, but it's not been bad because hopefully he's gotten a little bit of rest. Like you mentioned, Lorenzo and Luquan playing a ton of minutes. KP, hopefully the batters be recharged and he'll be ready for us as we get down to, you know, this Catawba game and into the postseason. We'll need him certainly to go very far without. If he's not playing at a high level and giving us that defense, rebounding what he does, and some solid post play, we're not going to go very far in the postseason.
Oh, and you had already alluded to Catawba, last game of the regular season, just kind of, and then that's all of a sudden you direct your attention to postseason play. But this Catawba team is playing really well. They take one on the chin last night to a veteran Queen squad, but before that they had won 5 in a row and 6 of their last 7. So, and you know the challenge is coming in. They really took us to the wire. It was a 10-point game here. Really felt like it should have been more like a 15-point game, but they really challenged us all night. And we know how tough it is to play there in Salisbury.
It is very tough, and you know, first I think Rob's done an unbelievable job with that group. I mean, you know, he walked in and has really improved their talent level, even though they lost really 2 guys from Jim's last team, and Tyrese Little and Elon Edwards, who are very talented guys. But you know, Kawan Arrington was a great holdover from that, and he's really maximized Kawan. You know, guys like Jaron Morrison, Jamel Taylor. I mean, it's a very young team, exceptionally talented. Gifted offensively. Rob's got them really, you know, doing great things on the offense of the ball. They're defensively getting better. I think going into before last night, they were really guarding at a pretty good level. They seemed like maybe against Queens, you know, they just had one of those nights. But you know, they were going into last night and play for a home game in the conference tournament. I don't know that that's the case now, but you know, they've had a tremendous season. Very young, very talented, very energetic. When we played them here, they're very hard to guard because they can get their own shots. They stretch you. They normally, you know, a guy like Arrington, you know, what do you take away? He can bomb it from 25 feet. He's a great driver. He's got a mid-range game. He can get the ball to the basket and finish. So he scores at all 3 levels. He can post you. You know, you have to try to find something to take away from him, but he's a guy that does everything well. Morrison, another guy that can shoot the ball from deep. He's in my opinion, even though he's a freshman, the best mid-range player in the league. He's unbelievable from 15 feet, and he can get that shot whenever he wants to. You got to kind of live with that. And if you think back to the game here, you know, we would get up and they would rally it back. We get up, they'd rally it back. It wound up being 10. And we did a pretty good job defensively. They just made a lot of tough shots. I mean, they're a team that that can make very difficult shots. You got to force them to take those, but you also got to be able to kind of absorb that and not have a "woe is me" type attitude when you do a great job on Morrison and he jumps up and he's got a hand, you got a hand in his face, and he drills a 15-footer. Arrington makes bombs a 25-footer. You got to be able to move on to the next play, because you're going to have to, a lot of times in that game, kind of tip your cap and say, hey, too good, because you got to play. You know, you can't give them anything easy. But even if you don't, they're going to make some hard ones. So we got to be ready for that. You know, they're at home. I think they'll be inspired to play. Certainly, we don't have any issue with getting a team's best shot. You know, we know we're going to get the most inspired effort possible, and that the whole deal for us is we got to be willing to give our most inspired effort. You know, we got to continue. You know, I thought Carson Newman was probably the most complete game we've played this year, and every game's not going to go like that in terms of the margin or everything is smooth. We may not make shots like that. We did a great job offensively. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. We made shots against Carson Newman, but we got to continue to play hard. We got to continue to play together, and if we do that, I think, you know, we'll give ourselves a chance to play our best, and that's what you want to be doing at this time of year. You want to be playing your best basketball going into the end of February, into March, into when it matters the most, right? So this is the time of year where it matters the most, and we want to be playing our best ball. We have a lot at stake from our end, what we're trying to accomplish. So I hope our guys will be focused, ready, and I know they'll be excited to play and end the regular season. Then we will turn our attention to the postseason, but certainly we're not going to do that before you know, Catawba will have all our attention and focus.
Well, I can't believe it, Coach. Postseason time is almost here. It seems the season feels like both a marathon and a sprint, but it's here. Best of luck on Saturday, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Sounds good, Scotty.